Okay, just an FYI for some special tools, the 1.5 millimeter hex wrench is your special tool that you're going to need for the Revoslot cars. That's because the set screws for the wheels, the gears, to set the motor, the gear mesh here and underneath, and for the guide is all 1.5 millimeter, so you're going to have to get that on order if you don't have one already. And then for the nuts right here, these brass nuts, to loosen these up so that you can have some float here in the chassis, you're going to need a 5 millimeter wrench or a socket wrench here. If they're pretty tight, they usually are, from the factory, pretty tight. And then of course you're going to need a standard Phillips cross tip for the rest, and for the body to chassis screws. So standard cross tip, that's not really a big deal. You guys have plenty of those. The 5 millimeter, you could get away with using a pliers here if you don't want to go out and get one of those. But the important one here is the 1.5 millimeter hex wrench. I just get mine from SCC. I get a couple of them just in case I get heavy-handed, but this Wera right here I've had for well over a year, still going strong. Now another FYI, once you loosen the screws here and you get the float that you want, okay, I highly suggest using something like, you can use clear silicone if you want. People do different things, but I use a little bit of the clear nail polish, and I'll put it right in here, right on top, as you can see, right on top of the screws there. And I'll let that set up for, well, 20 minutes or so until it's dry. Because once you loosen those screws, you're out there racing, you have a very good chance of those just coming loose, and then you can lose the nut or the screw or both of them. So just go ahead and put a little bit of nail polish there or whatever. And it's not that it's that permanent. If you really need to loosen them up again or take it apart for any reason, just with a little extra pressure, it'll pop loose. Another FYI on the tuning, on these cars, you notice it has these rubber caps right here over the posts, and they're here for a reason. First of all, they set the height of the body to the chassis to make it accurate. Second of all, there's an insert in here, a threaded insert, where the screw goes in, and the rubber actually kind of clamps around the screw and prevents it from backing out. So you want to keep these on here. You're not going to gain anything by removing them, because the body is so low that it's going to end up rubbing on, the interior is going to rub on the motor, or the tires to the body are going to rub. So removing these isn't going to get anything any lower. The interesting thing about this car is you'll notice the two different colors, and that's because inside the caps, if you take them off and you look at them, which is very hard to show here, but they're different thicknesses, so it's different height for the rear to the front. So just keep them on there, keep them in place. You're not going to gain anything by trying to get rid of them. This may not seem like much, but the screws for these cars are, well, specific to the cars, because you have the threaded insert for the body post, the chassis to body, the small screws underneath for the motor, and the body screws themselves. I suggest ordering, it's RS213, your dealer's going to have them, the full set of screws in case you lose one, because like I said, they're specific to the car, and it'll just ruin your day if you lose one of these and you can't run. Now this step is optional, of course, depending on your track system, your preference, but Revoslot does supply us with a slightly deeper guide for tracks that can handle it, wood tracks, Carrera, whatever you have, and I'm going to go ahead and swap it out. We have a wood track, so I'm going to pop this guide out of here and put in the deeper one. Pretty easy to do. You don't have to do any soldering here, just using your wrench. Remove the screw, take this out, we'll get it changed. So after you remove the screw, just be careful of the spring here. These guides are spring loaded, and if you want to continue using it, like I said, just be careful. If you're like me, if this thing drops or pops out, I'll never find it. So just FYI. Alright, so we're going to change the pinion from the 12 down to the 9 tooth like it should have. I just don't think the 12 here, it was a mistake to put it in these cars, as Revoslot and others will tell you. And I don't think the pitch of this gear, larger diameter gear, meshes well with the stock spur gear. It's a little bit loud, and anyone that's already changed them will tell you there's a big difference. So the first thing I'm going to do, using our wrench here, is I'm going to take this screw out here, and then this screw here. That'll loosen the bulkhead, and then we can take out the motor, and it's a lot easier to work with to get the pinion off. Okay, so I have it removed, and I just want to bring a couple of things to your attention. First of all, if you look at these screws down here, you can tell that this one here, the motor screw itself, is longer, a little bit longer than the one for the bulkhead from below. So don't get them mixed up, okay? Here's your bulkhead right here. Once you remove that, you take the motor out, you see the shim plate right here. Don't lose that, okay? So that shim plate, if it comes off, just put it back on once you change out the pinion. Okay, I've installed the 9-tooth pinion, and I installed the one screw here into the chassis, as well as the motor mount screw here, but I did not tighten this one. And then you need to loosen both of these to set your gear mesh. You don't want to just loosen this one and leave this tight, because you could pinch the motor back here in the bulkhead. You don't want to do that. So 1, 2, and 3, loosen all of them, and then you can move this motor back and forth to set your gear mesh. As far as setting the mesh is concerned, we all know how to do that. Some people can do it by sight. The good old paper trick in between the two gears still works for me sometimes. I think I got it pretty good, but we're going to go ahead and test it. And then finally, a drop of oil here on the bearings. You have to make sure these cars are lubricated. So a drop of oil here on the bearings, and a little bit of grease is what I'm going to use anyway, right here on the gears. And then we'll get the body back on, give it a road test, see what it's like. And of course, the final thing is I added tires. I changed to the Quick Slicks tires on this one, and the car back here is in box stock form, so we can do a little bit of a comparison. But one final thing I'd like to share with you, the front spoiler, these cars, very fragile. There's only 3 tiny little plastic posts holding them on. I broke that off just by handling it. So I used the UV glue there, as you can see, and got it put back on to where it'll last, but not very strong. So just a heads up on that. So now we can get to running. So right out of the box, you can hear the sound difference. It's got a little chatter. The stock tires don't really work that well out here. Be a lot better if they were trued up, but I've done that too. Just not my preferred tire. But I'm doing probably 4.50, 4.55. Nothing impressive, as you can see if I push it too hard. That's okay. So, you can kind of tell the noise level, and then the difference is night and day. Just a little bit of tuning, the right tires for the right environment. Just nice and smooth, very quiet. And I'm right down 3783. Just a whole different car. Well, just a little bit goes a long way, and I love these cars because they're just so unique. All of the Revoslots, I like them all. I don't have every single one of them, but pretty close. I like them. And I passed on the Alphas. I got one coming in and to go with these cars, because these little cars are a hoot. I cannot wait for a couple of folks down the road to come visit, and we can go 3 wide. Yeah, what a blast.